History remembers the grand battles, the clashes of entire armies that reshape the world. But there are other stories, quieter ones, that aren't fought by armies, but by a single person in the dark. These are the stories of impossible choices and immense courage that goes unseen. They aren't always found in official records, but they live on in the grateful whispers of those who were saved. This is one of those stories, you could call it a legend, born from the beautiful and volatile coastlines of the Philippines. It's the story of a lone sniper who found himself the only guardian of a sleeping village. He saw an enemy patrol descending in the dead of night and had to make a choice that broke every rule in his training. His solution wasn't to bring death, but to create a deception. This is the story of how a single bullet fired into the suffocating darkness became a shield for the innocent, and how one warrior used the shadows to save the light. To understand the weight of the decision this sniper made, you first have to understand his world. The Philippines is a nation of over 7,000 islands, a tapestry of dense jungles, rugged mountains, and sprawling coastlines. For centuries, its remote villages have lived by the rhythm of the tides, communities built on resilience, where life is hard but simple. But this very remoteness also makes them vulnerable. In the modern era, these peaceful places have often been caught in the crossfire of conflicts they didn't start. Insurgent groups have long used the difficult terrain to their advantage, preying on the unprotected to sow terror and steal resources. Imagine a village in a small cove, its huts clustered near the shore. By day, it's alive with the sounds of children playing and fishermen mending nets. But by night, an unnerving silence falls. The jungle becomes a wall of black, and the sea whispers. For these villagers, the armed forces of the Philippines, the AFP, are a distant idea. Their true protectors are often the unseen few, the special operations units that move like ghosts through the landscape. Among these elite guardians are the men who carry the spirit of one of the most famous units in military history, the Philippine Scouts. Now let's be clear about the history here. The original Philippine Scouts were a legendary U.S. Army unit of Filipino soldiers, famous for their unmatched discipline and bravery, especially during their desperate stand on the Bataan Peninsula in World War II. Though that historic unit was disbanded after the war, their legacy didn't die. It wasn't a direct lineage, but their spirit was carried forward, inspiring the elite forces of the modern armed forces of the Philippines. Today, the title of Scout is one of immense honor, held by the best of the Philippine Army and Marines. The Army's Scout Rangers and the Marines' Scout Snipers are the spiritual successors to those warriors of Bataan. Their training is the stuff of legend, a grueling ordeal designed to push a soldier to the absolute limit. A scout sniper is more than a shooter. He's a master of observation, camouflage, and ballistics, part intelligence analyst, part mathematician, and part hunter. Our story centers on one such man. We don't know his name. In the silent service, names are a liability. He's a member of a modern scout sniper team, a man who carries the weight of a heroic legacy on his shoulders. He understands the standard set by men like Sergeant José Calugas, a Philippine scout who, during the Battle for Bataan in 1942, ran 1,000 yards across a shell-swept field to man a friendly artillery gun, an act that earned him the Medal of Honor. This is the tradition he serves. He's not just a soldier, he's a guardian. His weapon is a high-precision, bolt-action rifle chambered for the 7.62mm round, an instrument capable of delivering judgment from 1,000 meters away. But a sniper's most important skill isn't pulling the trigger, it's knowing when not to. On this particular night, he was part of a small three-man team inserted into a coastal region to observe and report. An insurgent group known for its brutality had been raiding communities in the area. The team's job was to be the military's eyes and ears, to watch, but not be seen. They set up an observation post on a ridge overlooking the sleeping village below. The sniper settled into his hide, a nest of vegetation that made him invisible. For hours, there was nothing but the chirping of insects and the gentle wash of waves. The village was dark, its people lost in dreams, unaware of the sentinels watching over them. The life of a sniper on Overwatch is mostly intense stillness, punctuated by moments of heart-stopping adrenaline. He'd spent countless hours just like this, body aching, eyes straining through the darkness. He knew every tree, every hut, every path. He was part of the scenery, a predator waiting for a sign. And then it happened. A flicker of movement on the opposite ridge. He centered his scope, his breath tight in his chest. A man with a rifle, then another and another, a patrol. Through the green glow of his night vision, he counted them. 10, maybe 12 figures, moving with purpose. Their path led directly down the slope, straight for the village. This was the moment every soldier dreads. The intel mission was over. A threat was imminent, and he was the only one who could do anything about it. His heart hammered against his ribs. He keyed his radio, his voice a low whisper. "Contact! Hostile patrol, 10 to 12 men armed. They are on a direct course for the village." The team leader's voice crackled back, tense and clipped. "Understood. Stand by." The sniper knew what that meant. Their 3-man recon team was hopelessly outnumbered. A direct firefight would be suicide, and it would turn the village into a slaughterhouse. Bullets don't discriminate. The very people they were there to protect would be the first casualties, their homes torn to shreds in a vicious crossfire. The patrol moved closer. He could see the glint of moonlight on a rifle, the confident stride of men who thought their target was defenseless. They were wolves closing in on a sleeping flock. His mind raced. His training screamed at him to prioritize targets: leader, radio operator, heavy weapons. His finger found the cold steel of the trigger. He could do it. He could send a bullet across the darkness and end a life before the sound of the shot even reached them. But then what? The remaining 11 men, angry and confused, would unleash hell on the nearest cover, the village. His shot, meant to protect, would be the spark that ignited an inferno. He couldn't do it. A kill shot wasn't the answer. So, what was the alternative? Do nothing. Watch these men descend into the village to loot, terrorize, and kill. The thought was sickening. It was a betrayal of his oath, of the families sleeping below. He felt trapped. Engage, and the village dies. Do nothing, and the village dies. It was a tactical checkmate. He scanned the terrain again, his eyes darting around the frame of his scope, desperate for another option. And that's when he saw it, a thin, spindly shape rising from a clearing a few hundred meters to the side of the enemy's path. A radio relay mast, a simple piece of infrastructure, a skeleton of metal against the sky. It was tall, thin, and insignificant, but to the sniper it was everything. It was the third option. An idea, born of pure desperation, formed in his mind. It was a wild gamble, going against everything he'd been taught. Snipers are instruments of lethality. They don't shoot at inanimate objects. A bullet is precious, its sound an announcement of your presence. But what if the shot wasn't meant to kill? What if it was meant to manipulate? What if the purpose wasn't the impact, but the sound? He whispered his plan over the radio. "I have an idea. There's a radio mast. I'm not going to engage the hostiles. I'm going to engage the mast. I'm going to make a loud noise, try to draw them off course." A moment of silence. The team leader was surely processing the sheer audacity of it. It was unorthodox, it was risky, but it was the only plan that gave the village a chance. "Do it!" The leader's voice came back, firm. "We'll use the diversion. Moving to the village edge to get the people out. Buy us time." The weight of the world settled on him. The plan was in motion. It was all down to one impossible shot. He had to hit a narrow metal pole, maybe a few inches wide, in near total darkness from hundreds of meters away. A miss would be catastrophic. He began the methodical ritual of the shot. He settled his body into the earth, becoming a stable platform. He checked the wind, making a tiny adjustment to his scope, a single click. He accounted for bullet drop, aiming not at the mast, but at a point in the empty air high above it, trusting his math to let gravity do the work. The night vision scope flattened the world into a two-dimensional green ghost. He took a deep, slow breath, letting half of it out, finding that moment of perfect stillness. The world outside his scope ceased to exist. There was only the crosshair, the target, and the space between. His purpose was absolute. He wasn't taking a life. He was preserving life. He was a guardian, and this single piece of lead was his shield. His finger began to apply slow, steady pressure. The rifle bucked against his shoulder, a violent, familiar shove. The cracking roar ripped through the night, and for a split second the muzzle flash blinded him. But his discipline was absolute. He worked the bolt, ejecting the spent casing and chambering a new round, his movements fluid, automatic. He was ready for a follow-up shot before he even knew the result of the first. He got back on the scope just in time to see nothing. The mast was still standing. A knot of cold dread tightened in his stomach. Did I miss? Then a shower of sparks erupted high on the mast, a brilliant flash of metal on metal. A second later the sound reached him, a sharp, ringing clang that was the most beautiful sound he had ever heard. The mast shuddered, it swayed violently, then with a groan of tortured metal, the top section buckled. The entire structure crashed to the ground with a tremendous, echoing roar. The effect on the enemy patrol was immediate. The sniper swung his scope back to see total confusion. The men were scattered, seeking cover where there was none. They had no idea where the shot came from or what the target was. All they knew was that the night had just exploded. Their advance stopped dead. The enemy leader was shouting, pointing not towards the village, but towards the crash. They were disoriented. The crash told them someone else was out there in the dark, someone with a powerful rifle and uncanny accuracy. They were no longer the hunters. They were now the hunted. The patrol changed direction, moving away from the village to investigate the noise, their mission of terror forgotten. The sniper let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. It worked. The gamble paid off. While he was focused on his shot, his team had slipped down to the edge of the village. They moved like phantoms, waking families with a firm, gentle hand and guiding the elderly and children into the deeper shadows of the jungle. They also worked with villagers to hide their stores of rice, the community's lifeblood. In a stroke of genius, they stuffed rice into bundles of children's clothing, making it look like personal belongings, not a valuable food cache. The sniper watched as his team melted back into the jungle. The hostile patrol was still milling around the downed mast, their flashlights cutting useless beams into the darkness. They would find nothing but twisted metal and a mystery that would seed fear and doubt among them. The village was safe. As for the sniper and his team, their work was done. They faded back into the wilderness, their presence marked only by a toppled mast and a village that had slept through its own salvation. The next morning, the sun rose on a normal day. The villagers emerged from their homes and hiding places. They saw the soldiers' tracks, they saw their food was safe, and when they looked to the hills, they saw the wreckage of the radio mast. They may not have understood the exact tactics, but they understood the result. Danger had come, and a guardian in the dark had turned it away. Later, a small offering appeared at the edge of the jungle, where the tracks disappeared. A few fish and some root vegetables. A thank you whispered to the wind. Now, is this story a documented event? It's hard to say. It exists more as a legend, a story passed down through the ranks that captures the spirit of these elite soldiers. But the truth it tells is very real. It reflects the courage and ingenuity of the modern Philippine Scout Snipers and Rangers. We saw this spirit in the brutal, real-world fighting during the Siege of Marawi, where AFP snipers performed incredible feats of marksmanship and bravery to protect civilians from terrorist groups. These are the heirs to a legacy of heroism, fighting a quiet, often thankless war in the shadows. This story isn't just about a single bullet. It's about a choice. It's about the idea that the greatest strength isn't the power to kill, but the wisdom and courage to protect. It's a reminder that sometimes the most heroic act is the one that no one ever sees. If this story of quiet courage resonated with you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. We are dedicated to bringing you more stories of the unseen heroes who operate in the shadows. Click the notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into military history. Thank you for watching.